the characteristics of effective instructional leaders. You know, there are other sources. I mean, Vivian Robinson talks about the ability to establish goals and expectation, strategic resources, the targeting of resources, that there's a role in planning, coordinating, and evaluating teaching and curriculum. There's promoting, participating in teacher learning and development, a heavy emphasis in all this literature around professional development. And that consistent, persistent concern that you hear all up and down that the current professional development is bad.
Yeah.
And so how do we, what responsibility do we as a collective group focused on this begin to think about strategic ways to redo professional development?
It is. To me, it's really interesting because when we added this concept of instructional leadership, we didn't drop anything off of the plate that was already there. And so those principals still have all of the things that they used to do with this added on, so it becomes an even bigger task than what they had before.
Hess in his cage busting leadership book, interesting quote in which he's citing public agenda data, but he essentially said that in their surveys of principals, time is the most essential need that they have, and it's like 90% of principals are dissatisfied with the amount of time available for instructional leadership. And so they're desperate to find new ways of doing this to achieve the kinds of levels that we're talking about. And so part of what I hope we can do in this course is to kind of open up conversations about how do you build
people to think about
other kinds of capacities, how do you address these concerns and needs.
How do you set your priorities?
Yes. And how do you negotiate for that other 90% of your time that you don't? And then the Robinson thing is ensuring an orderly and supportive environment, school climate, school culture, and so forth. I keep coming back to, and I keep trying to press students in the Prince George's cohort to really be looking at Tell Maryland data. This is a data source that I'm impressed by, and we've got access to all the resources from Santa Clara if we want them. Students do in this course, and I think there's a lot in that in terms of talking about the appropriate climate of a school. That the next round of survey instruments is in the school system right now, and so both Anne Arundel and St. Mary's are working on this. But at some point, it'd be interesting to come back and examine the Tell data, maybe with some of the Tell people, in terms of whether that would be a resource for them as they write dissertations or as they study exam. I think it potentially could be. So, I mean, this goes on. There's lots more in terms of what instructional leader is, resource provider, an instructional resource, a communicator, a visible presence in the school. The walkthroughs, which became a big part of the conversation. Lots of emphasis around coaching. The principal is coach, and I'm not sure how far you want to carry that.
Well, coaching is great, but they got to know what they're coaching. They've got to be able to do it.
The expertise of the principal
has to be there.
or whoever is designated instructional leader.
Absolutely.
And the ability to use adult learning principles. And I sometimes worry that we don't do that. The stories that I get in this master's course from the teachers who go off and use professional development time to buddy up with somebody and to work on a lesson together while there's a speaker or they have something else. So we haven't found the answer yet, and we've got to do this. So the instructional leader has the ability to define a school mission, managing curriculum and instruction, promoting a positive school climate. Again, I think the Tell data might help. And then Elmore says that the instructional leader understands effective practices in curriculum, instruction, and assessment, and has the ability to work with teachers on the day-to-day problems that relate to design. My concern still is that we tend to think that a person who is expert in social studies can also be an expert in mathematics and advanced, particularly at the secondary level. Or that the person who has a deep understanding of pedagogy in particular subjects can carry across the examples of the English language scholar who suddenly is confronted with a mathematics problem in school, the importance of that. Or the absence of a reading specialty and so forth. And so how we draw on expertise, where we get that expert. How do you across a school district like St. Mary's or Anne Arundel maximize the use of expertise? I think becomes a critical issue.
Sure.
And the reality is, of course, that these are not new problems for the people who are going to be watching this.
No, no, one of the things that fascinates me is when you look at a school system that will take an elementary teacher who gets their administrative certificate
Right.
and plugs them into middle school and says, oh, well, you know elementary school, so you'll put them in middle school. Or vice versa, do it from high school down to middle school. And that's one of the big problems that the Prince George's kids have been circulating around and trying to find out some interest to.
No, there's enormous capacity and so forth.
Yeah.
It's still this. My concern continues to be this idea that the instructional leader is on a daily basis, back to the time constraint, able, willing, to provide direct assistance to any and all teachers. I mean, some of the Prince George's school principals that I'm advising them, I think that they're incredible work days and work weeks and just the ability to do this. I mean, they're already there till 8:30 and 9 o'clock.
Sure, I absolutely understand that. But yet somehow through this maybe setting of priorities, there's got to be a way to get an instructional leader into that classroom to observe that teacher. And they've got to know what they're doing when they're observing. One of the things that we're going to do in weekend 3, is to look at what research says is an ideal 5-point observation tool.
Okay.
And then they're going to try it, they're going to use it, check it out, and so on. I was thinking about this back when my teaching. I taught for 8 years in public schools. In 8 years, I had 3 visitors to my classroom. One was a principal, one was a department chair, and one was an accreditation team person. How in the world could they make any kind of assessment of me? Right. I'm fascinated with this concept.
Right. And I'm not sure it is. I think the problem's deeper than that.
Yeah, it is.
And it has to do with the fact that what we've essentially done is make teaching private.
Yeah.
I go in, I close the door, this is my class, I do some standards.
Sure.
And it's how do you open this up? And how do you, and professional learning communities was the big answer. I mean, that was what we've been talking about. But how do you do that in a real meaningful way so that people can drop in? I mean, one of my old mentors, I remember going with him to visit student teachers in the 60s and 70s. And the thing he was most proud of is that it wasn't just the in-school supervisor or mentor that showed up. It was all the teachers in that subject who would show up and watch this student teacher pilot a new lesson or take on a new concept. And so it created a different conversation in a struggling school in Omaha at the time that had a profound impact on the way that the school culture then was transformed. And I think as we talk about some of this stuff, we've got to think about new ways of making teaching more public in the department, in the school, in the system. And we don't do a very good job here either of that. You walk by us in the classroom and you think, wow, that's an interesting topic. I'd like to stop in. And you think the impact that would have on instructors. So instructional leadership in practice, actions, knowledgeable about instructions, provide support to teachers, provide feedback to teachers, conduct classroom observations, emphasize instruction. Still, how are you going to do all this? Design, deliver professional development, review student work periodically, having samples of student work from across the school, the walkthroughs, organizing that, doing the pre-observation, the post-observation, doing the evaluations, holding teachers accountable. All this is in the literature, and it's interesting to watch this. And so kind of where this, to me at least, concludes is Wallace has kind of captured this. I mean, it's interesting to go on the Wallace Foundation website and look at school leadership, and I hope that the class spends a lot of time on that website,
sure.
Because it is all there. So 5 practices: visioning, the climate setting, the collaboration, making sure that that works, the instruction itself in the school, making sure that that is done well, and then support. How do you support those activities and so forth? And as you go on the Wallace website, they have lots and lots of resources, they have strategies, they've done case study work, they've captured examples from school districts, large and small.
I think there are several articles from the Wallace material that are going to be used throughout that 5 weekend. These young men and women are going to do a lot of reading.
They are, yes.
And
And on top of that, 100% of time that they're doing this work. So I think we're at a important time in which new definitions, new ideas around instructional leadership are out there. The press of those forces of Common Core, the ESEA reauthorization, the end of Race to the Top, but kind of the reallocation of resources, even in a state like Maryland, it's certainly resource pressed right now. And just the fact that everybody is into this topic of evaluation, whether it stays or goes, we have spent the last 6, 7, 8 years with a heavy emphasis on how we do this. So something new is going to emerge from this in terms of defining instructional leadership. And I think the exciting thing is that you're going to lead this effort, this semester, or this period of time to arrive at this new vision of what instructional leadership can be. And we're going to learn. Same as time.
One of the things that I'm really looking forward to is the last hour of the class. The very end of the class is going to be hopefully a wide open discussion with no restrictions about what should be in education. And all of these students have all these years of experience, and I know that they have some ideas that they have not been able to express. And I want to give them the opportunity to express. They're going to have to be able to defend the idea. But I want the opportunity to be there for them to say what they think ought to happen in the world of education.
Let's talk a lot more about that, because there could be an interesting publication out of that, in which those presentations we capture somehow and we put them together and invite future cohorts to react to it, and invite other cohorts to. But I think this course is going to be good and interesting. I hope it's stimulating, and I hope it's provocative enough, and I hope they accept the fact that you're not expert in this, but well intended, and
but a lot of experience.
That's yes, that is true. Thank you, Mike.